Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching episode 3 of House of the Dragon. Obviously, full spoiler review. And yeah, episode 3, we are skipping more time forward. And I don't know if this is going to be like a reoccurring thing throughout the show. I have heard that like halfway through the season, we're going to switch up actors because the actors are going to age up. So, at least for the next few episodes, I guess we're going to continually just jump years and years ahead of time, which is interesting but also possibly dangerous narratively, which I'll kind of get into that. But yeah, we are now 3 years ahead of where we were in the last episode. So basically, at the end of the last episode, we kind of got to where Daemon is agreeing to go after the crab feeder, and he's kind of teaming up with oh god, what's their name? The Valerian people, the sea snake people, right? The people who own all the ships, and they got all mad because the king didn't marry their like literal child daughter, which that was crazy. So now we're 3 years later, and basically what we see is that Daemon did not have nearly as easy a time taking care of this crab eater as you would kind of think, because there are a bunch of people on the beach, but they hide in caves. And there's just a lot of them, I guess, and so they all just start shooting a bunch of arrows on fire at the dragon, at Daemon, and I guess it's just a much more difficult problem than you would have thought. So for the last 3 years, he's been trying to take these people out, which, by the way, he's also been doing this not with like the crown's authority, so basically the king is sitting there saying like, we're not at war, and everyone else is like, well, we kind of are at war, but maybe a little bit. It's like, well, Daemon started this on his own. Daemon and the people with the ships, they did this, they chose to do this. I did not sign off on this thing. And yeah, so that's kind of like the setup for this episode, and we don't really get a resolution to that until the end of it. But meanwhile, so basically, the king has married, I forget her name, but the Hand's daughter, who was best friends to Rhaenyra, and now they have a son. He's already 2 years old, and and of course this is going to complicate things because like the big obstacle in this episode, and I'm sure moving forward, was that like Rhaenyra's already been declared the heir, and now that he has a son, everyone's kind of like, well, this is it's a firstborn male. So he's the heir, right? And the king's like, no, I didn't just, he even has an argument with, I think it was a Lannister, which, by the way, yeah, we see a Lannister try to get with Rhaenyra, try to marry her, and that's a whole thing throughout this episode also, is that the king is trying to get her to marry somebody, just like, because that's kind of the way you did things back in the day, is like you did essentially business deals with other families by marrying into them, so this person's son is promised to that person's daughter, and now the family is bigger because like that's just kind of how it worked back in the day. So we see some Lannisters and stuff like that, and yeah, the king is basically adamant that like no, she is the heir still, this doesn't change anything. But we see some moments of doubt, like you can see the Hand whispering and kind of being like, well, you can marry her over to this person or that person, and then other people are saying like, well, why don't you marry your daughter over to this person, but basically the king ends it with saying like, hey, Rhaenyra, you get to choose who you want to marry, and you still are the heir. I don't plan on changing that. Which, is he going to keep his word with all that? Who knows really, but obviously the king is under a crazy amount of pressure to, obviously the Hand wants the son now to be the king, because the Hand then, I guess his place is more secure because he would be the grandfather of the king, right? So like his place politically is more secure. Now what else he wants, I'm not entirely sure, right? Like he's definitely got more schemes going on, but he's a real shady guy. And the king is just being kind of pulled in every direction, but yeah, it's fascinating just seeing all the politics. We're still very much in the, it feels like the early seasons of Game of Thrones still, like everyone's just scheming. Now, of course, we could look it all up in the books and figure out exactly what's going to happen, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try to avoid that, Anyways, so next we see Daemon, and this is really like the last maybe 15-20 minutes of the episode. So Daemon is there, and he's with the people of the ships, and the king has now, after 3 years, finally sent backup to help his cause, to try to take out these crab people, even though they had this huge disagreement. They haven't even talked to each other in like 3 years. And so basically he gets the letter, and he kind of loses his mind. He starts beating up the messenger, and he doesn't want any help from the king, because that would, I guess, be a sign of weakness or something. And so basically what he does, he comes up with this plan of, he goes out there and he pretends to surrender. He starts waving around the white flag. And then basically he gets overrun. He starts running towards all the crab feeders people, after he fake surrendered. And he seems to make it pretty far, but of course, he's basically luring out all of like their whole little army that they got, like luring them out of the cave. I guess that was his plan. And then off from the side, the rest of, the sea snakes people start showing up, the rest of the army. And so it's like this big battle, and then Daemon is free to go chase after the crab feeder himself. Now, we don't actually see him kill the crab feeder, but he comes out of the caves dragging his torso's like cut in half, and he's just dragging it. And anyways, it's this pretty cool moment saying like, okay, I managed to take care of this without any help from the king, basically, which I guess was really the only point he wanted to prove. And yeah, I guess it's interesting kind of knowing that like next episode we're likely gonna have another time skip, and it's, I guess this whole crab feeder thing, I guess it served its purpose, like, narrative-wise, but, like, this wasn't, like, a character who ever had any lines spoken, and you don't really, like, you don't get to know that much about what their deal was, they're just kind of, like, crazy-looking people who are, within the next episode taken care of, so I don't know. I guess it's just because we're skipping so much time. This was not like a drawn out thing, we didn't spend like a full season trying to take care of these crab feeder people, so I don't know. It's an interesting way of telling this story, but I mean, it's working, right? Now next episode, I guess we'll find out if Rhaenyra is gonna, choose somebody, or they're gonna skip another 3 years and be like, okay, she's already chosen someone, and we'll just we'll see what happens there. Now, of course, now that Daemon's taking care of the crab feeders, like he's gonna be seen by some people as having more of a right, more of a claim to at least the like the loyalties of certain areas up north or whatever. So I don't know. I don't really know where this is going to go from here. Like the king is definitely going to get killed at some point. I think that's definitely a thing they're pointing towards, because he was drinking all this wine this episode, and I kind of almost thought that he was going to get poisoned, or maybe he was slowly being poisoned, because like, he starts getting more and more drunk, and I was like, if he falls over and it's like, oh, the drink's been poisoned, like I was half expecting that to happen. So I don't know. But they also, there's a lot of like, some symbolic imagery happening this episode where like, so they go out to the woods and they're trying to kill these, I guess these giant deer. They called them something, but they have their deer with the giant antlers, right? And they go out to kill them because like, they mentioned how like, oh, back in the day, this was the image of royalty in our land before the dragons came, right? Which, of course, we know Robert Baratheon, they use that's their sigil that they end up using. So, I guess there's somewhat of a symbolic imagery here of, like, the Targaryen king killing the deer. And then they're supposed to be trying to go after a white deer, which is like, like, oh, this is like the special, this is a message from the gods kind of thing, But what ends up happening, actually, is that Rhaenyra, she ends up seeing the white deer and ends up letting it go, which, something that signifies to her maybe she's supposed to actually be the heir. And when I'm sure eventually the king goes back on his word and actually does name his son the heir, I'm sure that's going to piss her off, because now maybe she feels more reinforced that, like, oh, I saw the white deer, like that was, that was that was my message from the gods, that like I was supposed to be the queen or something. I don't know what the full message was behind that. But yeah, I'm still really enjoying the show. The fight scene that we haven't gotten a lot of action in this show so far. We've seen like a couple, gory images, but like this has not been a very action fueled show. So like having that scene with Daemon taking down the crab feeder was really cool. With all these time jumps, it does feel like, it almost feels like these are mini movies, you know what I mean? Like we're watching the sequel movie to last week's movie, because we have to kind of readjust a little bit to be like, okay, where are we at? What's happened in the last 3 years? And they do a pretty good job of like, laying down that established of like, okay, it's been 3 years, he's still fighting the crab people, the son's been born, he's turned 2, they haven't spoken to Daemon in 3 years. That, like they laid down the groundwork of what's happened. And so far the show it's still very much just the Targaryen show. Obviously that's what it's called, right? But it has not yet turned into that thing where we're following 5, 6, 7 different plot lines all happening at once. And I don't know if this show's ever gonna be that. This might just be the show that it is now. In fact, I don't even know have they confirmed that there's a season 2? They might have. But I don't know how many seasons this show is supposed to last, because the way that they're skipping through time, the way they're doing this is like, are they speeding through the story, or was there really just nothing that really happened of that significant in the last 3 years? I don't know. It's kind of interesting the way this is doing things so differently than the original Game of Thrones. Anyways, let me know what you guys thought. Let me know what your theories might be of like what's gonna happen next, and who's gonna kill who, and who's, is the dad absolutely gonna make the son the heir? It feels that way. It feels like, even though he's like insisting like, no, I made her the heir, she's definitely gonna stay the heir, I don't have any plans on changing that. It definitely feels like by next episode that's gonna have changed. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.